last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another brand new edition of Dark Matters Radio. And boy, oh boy, do we have one spectacular show for you tonight. My guest is Mr. Klaus Dona. Name familiar? Well, as a matter of fact, he just starred in a new episode of Forbidden History. Currently, he's in Asia on some research and investigation, but Klaus is best known for his work, archaeological and investigative, on especially out-of-place things, out-of-place objects, parts. Now, we were going to have Klaus on about a year or so ago. It was all set up. We were ready to go. Unfortunately, a huge hurricane, well, we would call it a hurricane. Over there, they call it typhoons, hit, and they had absolutely no power that Klaus could come on. But our intrepid producer, Bill Skywatcher, has been working diligently. Finally, we were graced with Mr. Klaus Dona's presence. Klaus, this is genuinely an honor. Welcome to Dark Matters Radio. It's been a long time coming.
Hello, Don. Thank you very much for inviting me into your program, and very close we were already to give up this program because until 10 minutes ago we had no electricity and I was really nervous, and suddenly the light went on and I knew now we have electricity back and we can make this interview. Otherwise I had to apologize again the second time, but no, I'm here.
Well,
thank you for inviting me.
Great. It sounds like my area of California, Klaus. Periodically, we also experience blackouts, but luckily, I happen to have a generator, and if it, in fact, happens, we can at least turn the lights in the coffee maker on. So that's the most important thing. Well, this is genuinely a pleasure. Klaus, now you originally are from the nation of Austria.
That's right. Yes.
As a matter of fact, you're just a year older than I am. When I was doing a little research and I wanted to take a look at some of the work that you've been involved in over the years, I came across your birthday. So by golly, you and I are pretty close there. Now, I got to ask you, what was it that piqued your curiosity to begin looking for these strange and enigmatic, out-of-place things?
That was connected with my work before. I did many international Austrian culture exhibition, especially in Japan, but also in Korea, and from Japan to Austria. And on the long flights, I had a lot of time also in the hotels through jet lag when I couldn't sleep very well. I read many, many books, and especially about out-of-place artifacts or very mysterious places all over the world. And I have to say, frankly, I was a big skeptical man. And I didn't believe everything what I read in those books. And I thought one day, why not trying to get such artifacts to Vienna and present them in a big exhibition? And then we tried, that was at around 1997. So we
Really? I was in Vienna in 1997.
Unfortunately, we didn't meet that time.
No, I was an invited guest to speak at, and as a matter of fact, my wife also at the first World UFO Congress put on there by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ferry Radek or Rado.
Yeah.
I don't know if you may have come across him at one point or another.
Some of them I met, but at that time I was not at all interested in UFO and extraterrestrial. My focus was on ancient civilizations and out-of-place artifacts. So we started together with a friend, Reinhard Habeck, we started and we selected around 350 artifacts, which are all over the world in museums. And then a good friend, through my work with culture exhibitions, a director of a museum, helped us. And he wrote some lending requests to all those museums all over the world. And out of 350 requests, we got one okay. All the other artifacts, they could not lend us through. They need it by themselves, or there are not enough explanations, or they are not in a good condition, and so on. So it was already already beginning of 2000, and we had one artifact. And then, as I had already the rental contract with the exhibition hall, my friends told me, you better give up because that's impossible to do that exhibition. Pay the penalty and forget it. And I said, as long as you don't try it, you can never say it's impossible. And then I started to travel to South America with friends, researchers, also to Central America, United States, and in Europe some places. And finally, in less than 1.5 years, we had about 470 artifacts in the exhibition in Vienna. And
now, these were artifacts that there was no rational explanation for. Is that correct?
Most of them, yes. That's
Give
correct.
me an example of what some of them were and their purported age, Klaus.
Purported age, as most of the real strange artifacts are made out of stone. Age dating is quite difficult. At that time, it was impossible. I think now there is a technology which might be able to do age dating even on rocks, but I'm not sure about that. So there were artifacts from Colombia, from Ecuador, even from United States, the so-called Burroughs Cave, which is in the scientific world, it's a fake, it's a fraud. But I can tell you, we did with our new technology, we did a scan over the area in Illinois, and I read the book from Russell Burroughs, and he was also at the exhibition opening 2001 in Vienna, with together with Wayne May, the publisher of the Ancient American magazine, and he showed me a drawing which he made when he said he was inside the Burroughs Cave, where he found thousands of stones with engravings and many other important things. And as I said, in United States, the Burroughs Cave artifacts are fraud. Same like the Michigan copper plates, which I also think they are really original and not fakes, because they are not fitting in the story of the United States. So automatically all those pieces are fraud and fake. And you know how many times they found very mysterious artifacts in United States which should not be there in any case.
Well, on what basis did they declare this cave a fraud?
Because you have an unknown writing on some of those rocks, or on many of those rocks, which Russell Burroughs brought out from the cave. You have drawings of different nationalities or indigenous people, like Iroquois, American Indians, or African people, and so that's impossible for the science. And they definitely announced the Burroughs Cave as a fraud. But,
well, the Mexicans have those gigantic, extremely ancient Olmec heads that are definitely seem to show Africans in this going back many thousands of years. Have they declared them fraudulent?
They just say they don't know who made it and which civilization did it. They think it was done by the Olmecs, but as I told you, you cannot age date the rocks, so it's quite impossible to say who made it and how old are those big rocks. But in Ecuador, we found a private collection from Father Crespi. He was a priest collecting a lot of pieces which the local indigenous people brought him. And there we found also stones with the same or very similar unknown writing like on the Burroughs Cave stones. And then further on, we found in Clausel in France also stones with exactly the same writing like the Burroughs Cave rocks. So whoever who would have done a fake or fraud in Illinois, he must have known at least about the rocks from Ecuador or from France, Clausel, but even in Turkmenistan later on, we got some artifacts with exactly the same writing. And there was one gentleman, Professor Schildmann in Germany. He was the president of the German Language Society. And he spoke and wrote, I don't know how many languages. And he could, as he said, decipher, not translate, but decipher those writings. And he wrote a book, and it was only a private edition, but fortunately I got one of these books. And he explained that this unknown writing from Ecuador, from France, from United States, from Turkmenistan, that this writing has a slight similarity to the writing of Mohenjo-Daro, now Pakistan, and also to the Easter Island writing. So he called this writing pre-Sanskrit because he said this writing must be even older than Sanskrit.
Well, one thing, you mentioned Ecuador. One thing, Klaus, that I definitely wanted to talk to you about are the bones belonging to what appear to be a humanoid creature that is over 7 meters in height. That is fantastic. I mean, good heaven. What? Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, on one of our trips to Ecuador, I heard a story about a father, a priest, Father Carlos Vaca in the province of Loja, that's south province of Ecuador, that he found some broken bones of a human giant in the size of 7.6 meter or 25 feet. Of course, at the first moment, my reaction was the same. I thought maybe it's a fraud, but it's worthwhile to go down to the province of Loja and try to find the priest. And finally, when we arrived in the city of Loja, the province name is also Loja, we checked in a hotel, and then in the morning I asked the reception lady if she knows a Father Carlos Vaca. And of course she didn't know, but she said there is a church only 5 minutes from the hotel, and they have all the data from all the priests in the province of Loja. So we went there, and a nun welcomed us, and I asked her if she could give me some information about Father Carlos Vaca. So she left us, and it took about 25 minutes. And when she came back, she said finally she found Father Carlos Vaca, but he passed away exactly 1 month before. So that was very pity. And I asked where he worked, and he worked until his death in the hospital in Loja. And so I took my friend, and we took a taxi, and we went there. And finally, we could find out where he lived, and his niece welcomed us in the house, and she showed us some. First of all, she explained us the whole story, that one day in the south of the province, in the mountains, there is one area which is called Changaimina, which means the cemetery of the giants. And the people there are very afraid of mysterious things. And after one night, a heavy storm, one part of a small platform was broken down, and they found a lot of broken bones, because the soil there was very, very hard, and through the breaking down, the whole skeleton was broken in many, many pieces.
So we had actual bone, not fossils.
Bones. Yeah.
Okay.
Broken bones. And the father, they called the father to look what kind of bones are these. And as Father Carlos Vaca worked many years in hospitals, he recognized some of those bones that looked very, very similar to human bones. The only difference, it was about 5 times bigger than normal human bones. And then he collected some of the bones, and he brought them to the city of Loja. And I have a paper signed by some doctors who examined most of those bones, and they all signed that paper, and they announced that those bones are human bones, part of human bones. So finally, on my second trip, the niece knew where this Changaimina was, and we went there, and the landowner of the area where Father Carlos Vaca found those bones, he showed us the area. And he said, after Carlos Vaca took away most of the bones, some researchers came with some technology, like a ground penetrant radar or some, he didn't know what kind of electronic system. And they said that there are even some more human skeletons underground there. So that would be one of my plans already many years, to go there and make a digging with a real professional archaeologist and do the digging at the area where they think that there are still some completely human skeletons.
Was there any testing done on these, Klaus? DNA?
I was able to bring some pieces which I thought might be able to identify. I could bring them to Austria, and we did some DNA analysis, but it was not possible to get any real DNA out of those bones. And the experts told me that it might be too old, or it depends in what kind of soil the bones were, which could destroy the DNA, so they could not do any analysis. But I got some specialists on doctors on bone structures and everything, and pathologists, and the one top pathologist from the university, he checked the bones and he said, I have 4 bones, which could be identified. One is a part of a heel bone, one is a nose bone, one is a so-called os occipitale, that's a bone under the skull, which makes you able to rotate your skull. So he told me, it looks like human bones, and I will come tomorrow again. And next day he brought exactly those bones from a normal skeleton, and he compared again, and he said, it looks like human bones, but it would be impossible because that human must have been 5 times taller. So if you think that at the time of the Spaniards, the conquistadors coming to Ecuador, most of the Spaniards were about 5 feet, 1.5 meter. And there we found also in the archives a documentation from Chiesa de Leon. He was a famous historian, half Inca and half Spanish. And he wrote in one of his documentations, today we found at the coast of Esmeralda, that's the coast, west coast in Ecuador, today we found several human skeletons which were 5 times taller than we. So then we found in a museum in Cuenca, we found several very, very big stone axes, but one made out of granite, about 70 centimeter long. And you could even see where the rope was tied on the axe. So very heavy, and it's called in the museum ceremonial axe. And then we made comparisons with the normal old axes, stone axes, and this one, and we came to the result that this one human should have been at least 5 times taller than a normal human. And then the next advice to 7.5 meter giant was Manuel Palacios, who is a great researcher in Ecuador, and he did already several researches in the so-called Cueva de los Tallos. The Cuevas de los Tallos are deep in the jungle, not too far away from a big river, and this area is owned by the indigenous tribe of the Shuars. The Shuars was a famous headhunting indigenous tribe. They made the so-called shrumped skulls. They took out the bones and then they filled it with sand and special material, and they heated the skull, the head, and then you have a head not bigger than an apple, but the face, everything you can exactly see, and the long hair, the Shuares.
Were any of these carbon dated to see how old they might be?
What? What?
How old these bones were? How far back in time were they from? Is there any indication of how old these bones are?
Not yet. I have to do that, but you have to think those things are very expensive, and you have to pay it. They won't do it for you free of charge. So of course we can do that also one time.
Is there no academic institution that would be willing to assist with this?
No, because if you talk about a 7.6 meter giant, you are already out of believable.
Ah, okay, all right.
But still,
now, what about
many approvals? I have so many approvals about very big human, like in Bolivia. I have photos from 2.6 meter giants, even from United States, from Utah. I have a lot of pictures of even 2.7 to 3 meter giants. Then I got a few months ago from the Caucasus some informations that they found some sarcophagus with over 3.5 meter skeletons. They invited me to go there whenever I have time to see them and to document them, and so on. And even now, here in the Philippines, about 2 weeks ago, one of the treasure hunters which are working in the jungle, he reported me that they found one cave, and in the cave there is a skeleton which is between 3.5 and 3.8 meter long. And I really look forward to see that and make the measurements and everything, that people really believe that giants existed in the past.
Yeah, well, even the Bible talks about giants, but
Exactly.
what about the local myths and stories? Do the indigenous people have any tales about these giants?
Everywhere on Earth, even in Africa, in South America, in North America, in Europe, in the Caucasus, like Georgia and Soviet Union, close to Chechnya, where they found those skeletons. They existed. And then you find a lot of big, oversized stone axes and stone tiles, which a normal people would be not able to use it on.
Well, now in the United States, up around the Great Lakes, of the United States, there were many copper mines discovered.
Yeah, in Michigan.
Yes. And in there also, and these copper mines, apparently a tremendous amount of copper was removed, probably several millennia ago. And who might have been taking that out? Of course, it's an open question. But also, Klaus, there had been graves discovered up there with gigantic humanoid people, some with horns coming out of their head, that were wrapped in copper armor. Are you familiar with that?
I heard about it, yeah. And even with double row teeth.
Yes, that is correct. You're absolutely correct. Well, so that would seem to suggest there's a tremendous amount that we truly have no knowledge of.
Yeah, but there are hundreds of press reports from 1890 up to approximately 1920. Hundreds of reports who found where oversized skeletons, everything. Why after that these stories disappeared? Nobody won't talk about it.
Right. Right. Well, they would have to redo history.
Completely, because the story that the first North American indigenous people came through the Bering Strait to America would be just a fraud. It's not true, because how many artifacts were found in South America and even in North America, which are going far behind the 14,000 years, which they are saying now officially that first people came to the Americas about 14,000 years ago. That's completely nonsense, in my opinion. And there are a prover from Mexico, Huetlaco, that they found human remains 250,000 years, or carved bones in Argentine, which also more than 200,000 years old. So the story is completely different. Our history is really different, I think.
Absolutely. And not only that, but it's an open question academically, if they're honest about it, on exactly how old Homo sapiens sapien, you and I, the human race, how old they actually are, how long they've been here.
There is Michael Cremo, is the expert researcher on the age dating of really Homo sapiens sapiens. And I also think there are so many approvals that the human's history might go far behind our time. But the problem for the scientists would be, now the oldest known so-called high civilizations are about 6,000 years. So if we
you took me exactly, Klaus, exactly where I wanted to go. When I was in college, back in the late 1960s, all right, my love, and it has always been my love, even to this day, is history, especially ancient history. Now, every academic at that time credited Mesopotamia, credited the Sumerians as being the first civilization, the first. Everybody before Mesopotamia were, Stone Age cavemen, hunter-gatherers, which I never believed that. Even then, I didn't believe that for a second. But with that being said, if you tried to talk about earlier civilization, nobody would have anything to do with that. But the one thing that even then that caused me to wrinkle my brow, even in the Judeo-Christian Bible, they talk about the city of Jericho. Jericho was over 9,000 years old.
Yeah.
Which is before Mesopotamia, before Samaria. And then a number of years ago, Göbekli Tepe was discovered.
Yes.
That go back 11,000. Now, a few months ago, I had a woman, female PhD archaeologist on the show, and we were discussing Göbekli Tepe, okay?
Yeah.
And I made the remark, academia would have us believe that hunter-gatherers, cavemen, created that site. Okay, which makes no sense whatsoever, none.
No.
And I said, it sounds, and she totally agreed with me. I said, it sounds like refugees were moving through that area. And she said, exactly. Well, refugees from where? Refugees from whatever civilization was there prior to the event that caused the ice caps to melt and recede. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Klaus.
There are coming up so many new findings. As you said, Göbekli Tepe. Then the next one is Indonesia. They found human-made big structures like little similar with the pyramid. Age dating now is 24,000. And then we go even more back in time. We go to the Bosnian pyramids. They found in the underground tunnel system many very strange artifacts, some of them with a writing which I just told you we found in Burroughs Cave, in Ecuador and other countries. And they found organic material. And they did age dating in Russia, in Ukraine, and in Serbia. And the result goes up to 32,000 years. So
that would seem to suggest a worldwide civilization that had one common tongue, would it not?
Yeah, then we go back again. You mentioned before the Bible, and you have the story of the Tower of Babel. Until the building, the construction of the Tower of Babel, they all spoke one language. And then you find all over the world very similar artifacts, which would tell me that there must have been a global contact, let's say. But the problem, Don, the problem is you cannot talk with a specialist on Egyptian culture about South American culture and vice versa. But there are so many similarities. So it would be interesting and necessary to go much deeper into the details and make comparisons and make material check.
Well, you specialize in OOPArts, Klaus.
Yeah.
And something that always fascinated me was when researchers came forward that had been studying Egyptian mummies, royal mummies, that showed traces of cocaine and tobacco in the mummies. Now,
yeah, Don, there is a very interesting story. The first scientist who found that out was a young German scientist. And when she made the report about what she found, she got a big problem because all the university professors, they were all against her because that they said that is crazy. And then they checked her life and they found out that she was, when she was young, she was still young, but when she was a teenager in the university studying, she was smoking marijuana. And then her image was destroyed. And years later, Russian scientists approved the same finding. But nobody said, excuse me, to that scientist. Her future was really damaged. And this is why many scientists are afraid to touch some interesting out-of-place artifacts. They are really scared. I have some very good friends, scientists. I can bring artifacts and they do me a checking everything, but what they always say is, I make it for you, but please don't mention my name because I have a family and I don't want to lose my job. This is the big problem.
It's called academic fascism, Klaus.
Exactly. But the good thing is that some young scientists now are really open their eyes, and I have some good contacts.
Let's go back for just a moment to these findings of cocaine and tobacco in these Egyptian mummies. Now, to me, all right, to me, I use my common sense. I try to think logically,
Yeah.
and these are not these are not, organic materials found in the Middle East or in Egypt. These were native to the North and South America. And so how would Egyptian mummies, when they were alive, how would they have gotten their hands on this? Well, the only way to me that made sense is people that would have been going from the old world to the new world trading, okay? Trading in South America, Central America, possibly North America. That would presuppose a civilization like Phoenicia, who were in ancient times were renowned sailors. But there's very little discussed in history about that, Klaus. Do you have any reason, any thinking on why that may be?
Yeah, because the most of the scientists would be immediately against. Immediately. Because that's not possible. Point. Not able discussing. But look, let's talk about the Egyptians. Through an American researcher, Bob Newton, I got an information and a contact with Australian researchers, Stephen and Evan Strong. They were giving me informations about Egyptian hieroglyphs in Australia. And they asked if we could do a check over the area where those hieroglyphs were found, if there is any grave, because the translation of these hieroglyphs is, they told me, the translation said that there was buried, I forgot, the son of a famous pharaoh was buried there where they found the hieroglyphs. But of course, for the Australian scientists, those hieroglyphs were a fake, maybe made in the 1900s to cheat people which find them. Would you do such a difficult and very hard work to cheat people in a place which would be impossible to find by people? Would you do that? I mean, just logical thinking. No?
Well, that's their fall to position immediately when they're confronted with a paradox like that. Also, in North and South America, several years back, I interviewed another archaeologist, not on this network, but on a different network, about discovering Roman and Greek and Phoenician coins, including Roman swords in North and South America. Now, if you had possession of an actual artifact like a Roman sword, would you toss it in a creek in the mud so somebody would discover it? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
That's many times. But coming back to Australia, we did a research over the area with our technology, and we found a tunnel and we found a room. And the tunnel entrance was quite a little distance away from the hieroglyphs, but the tunnel was going direction, and close to the hieroglyphs there was a room, and we could detect in the room bones and precious metal. So that means if they buried a high-ranking Egyptian family member of the pharaoh, definitely they would give some very important relics with him into the grave. So I sent to even strong, this exactly position where we have an entrance to a tunnel. And I sent it, and a few weeks later, I got photos from a perfect man-made tunnel they found exactly on the position which we gave them. They said they never would have checked so far away from that area. They only checked the close area. So finally, with our positioning, they could find the tunnel. And after a few meters, the tunnel was collapsed, most probably through a heavy earthquake in the past. But definitely a man-made tunnel with perfect worked stone blocks, exactly in the same direction going to the room.
Was there any indication on what dynasty, or whether that would have been Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom? Any idea whatsoever?
Oh yeah, you can find, or your listener can check Stephen and Even Strong in Australia, and they have a lot of information about that on their website.
Okay.
And I tell you, so that's an approval that Egyptians even went to Australia. And here was a finding a few years ago, some plates, Egyptian copper plates, and also one gold statue, which looks exactly like the statue in the museum in Berlin of Nefertiti in gold.
That is just simply astounding. And it's, in my opinion, Klaus, it's a crime that this information is hidden.
There are too many informations hidden still.
Well, you mentioned Michael Cremo. Now, I know Michael Cremo. I know his co-author with his book Forbidden Archaeology.
Exactly, yeah.
I have interviewed both gentlemen, Cremo, several times. His book, when that first became available back in I believe it was 1993, yeah. I immediately ordered a copy of it. It's in my library, my home library today. I refer to that frequently, and to go through that book, if you're not familiar with any of these ideas, this is truly a mind blower, is it not?
It is 100% a mind blower. I met Michael several times in conferences, and even I invited him to the opening to our exhibition in Vienna 2001, Unsolved Mysteries. He came, and we had a conference also. He was talking about his researches. He is a great researcher, definitely.
Yes, and his co-author, Dr. Richard Thompson, did you know him also?
No, I didn't know him, but he passed away, right?
Well, if he did, I have not heard of it.
I think that was the reason why they couldn't work together after the first book.
Yeah, I did not. I'm going to look that up now. I'm going to check that out. I had a fascinating interview with Thompson, and I also saw how they were savaged years ago when NBC did a special. I forget now what the title was, but it was.
Oh yeah.
And it was based on their book Forbidden Archaeology, and they were savaged by the scientific establishment.
I think it was with Charlton Heston.
Yeah, it was a travesty, Klaus.
Yeah, I know. I met also the American archaeologist Neil Steady, he made always a joking. He said, he is the black sheep of North American archaeologists. He did great research on Hueyatlaco, and he could prove that they really took all the pieces which Virginia Steen McIntyre found and age date to over 250,000 years. And they were hiding all those artifacts. And he found some of them. He did a good research, because the story with Virginia Steen McIntyre is also another example why not many scientists are trying to touch or to make research on out-of-place artifacts, because there was a young geologist working in Hueyatlaco, and she found some fireplaces and materials, organic materials, and she did age dating, and she came on an age of about 100,000 years, and she reported to the university, and then the university sent down the Dr. Virginia Steen McIntyre to check that young lady's work, and she went down, and she found out the age dating was not correct, because it was even older. It was approximately 200 to 250,000 years. And when Virginia Steen McIntyre published this result, she lost her job at the university, and until now she didn't get an official job. And that's the reason why most scientists, even if they would like to check those out-of-place artifacts, they are just scared, because they have family, they have a position, they might lose the job and never more work on a serious job after publishing some real facts.
So probably many of them give you a wide berth, I would imagine.
I have some friends, as I told you, and they will give me some information, but please don't mention my or our name. And that is for the contrary side, for the scientists. This is the explanation why I am a liar, why I am not showing the approvals who made the research on it. So because they say he cannot, because he has no result. He is a faker, he is a liar. But I would never mention the name of people who helped me if they ask me not to mention them.
Of course, of course. Well, you know, I was a police officer and a criminal investigator, and I was bound to, by my duty, if I were ever questioned in a court case about a confidential informant, I would have to go to jail rather than name their name.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. Now, Klaus, in all your time, your investigations, your research, I am curious if or how many items you may have encountered that would show advanced technology. Now, granted, most of what archaeologists turn up for the most part are stones, worked stones, pottery, that type of thing. But have you ever encountered what you thought was advanced technology?
That's very hard to say if you cannot approve it, Don. This is the difficult thing. But there is one scientist now in Austria. He was many years researching on underground tunnel systems. And he announced last year in a conference which we had together in Vienna in Austria, he announced first time officially as a scientist, he said part of those tunnels are at least older than 10,000 years, and they are made with a technology which we do not have yet. In Austria, those tunnels. And before I got contact with him, I got several photos, and I saw also some underground tunnels in Crete, in Greece, the Creta island. And when I saw the book of this scientist, I thought that's about Creta. And I read, and he was writing that was in Austria. So I thought upon looking at the photo, I look on a photo of a Greece tunnel, but it was the Austrian tunnel, exactly the same. And now this scientist can prove that these tunnels were done with a technology which we do not have today.
Well, you know, if you go back and you look at some of the finds in Babylon, for example, they have archaeologists have discovered the Babylon batteries. I'm sure you're familiar with those.
Oh yeah, I know.
Somebody apparently at least had a rudimentary understanding of electricity, which when you think about that, and Egyptian pictograms showing showing what appear to be gigantic light bulbs with the cable coming out of the rear.
You mentioned very interesting thing, because my colleague in Vienna, Reinhard Habeck.
Well, Klaus, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're at the top of the hour. We've got to take that top of the hour break. Let's pick up there immediately upon returning, all right?
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I am honored and privileged to have Mr. Klaus Dona, after trying to get him on for years, finally join us right here on Dark Matters Radio. Believe me when I tell you, this is a distinct pleasure for me. We've got a heck of a lot more coming up after the top of the hour, so stick around. This is KGRA Radio, your contact point to the paranormal. And incidentally, tonight, thanks to Bill Skywatcher and KGRA, we're not even going to be breaking for breaks other than the top of the hour, because I don't want to have any missed time with Mr. Dona. We'll be back. Stick around.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers, graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
Mainstream media's most wanted. KGRARadio.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, tonight with my very special guest, Mr. Klaus Dona. And we had a very short chat during the break. And we discovered between the two of us that we know some of the same folks. So anyway, that was great. Klaus, before we went to break, I had mentioned some ancient Egyptian pictographs, and I mentioned the Babylonian batteries and what appeared to be ancient Egyptians. Now, this is speculation, ladies and gentlemen, pure speculation. I wasn't there. I don't know. I can only go by what my eyes tell me, but it looked like they were using electrical objects, Klaus.
Yeah. We had one example in our exhibition that was a model of a big electric bulb, which the original is in the temple of Dendera in Egypt on the wall. And a friend of mine, Reinhard Habeck, when he was young, it was already, I think, 25 or 30 years ago, with his other friend, they found an electric engineer who made a model. And you won't believe it, that model really made electric light. It was built exactly on the drawing in the temple of Dendera. You can find on the internet many explanations about that model. We had it in our exhibition. It really functioned, and it made exactly like also on the original, a long, like a snake looking light blue light inside the bulb.
That is amazing. Well, you know, your specialty are out-of-place artifacts. Now, it may have been in Michael Cremo and Richard Thompson's book, Forbidden Archaeology, and although I haven't looked for it for a long time, I'm sure you can also find photographs on the internet. But what I'm getting at, prior to the destruction of the megafauna in North America, Europe, and other places, and when I say megafauna, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about animals like the great woolly mammoth, the mastodon, the saber-toothed cats, the giant ground sloths, the giant short-face cave bears, the giant bison, diurnal wolves, all of those animals, which numbered in the many millions around the world, seemingly vanished in an instant when we underwent some type of catastrophic event on this planet. But a skull was found of, let me see, Klaus, if I pronounce this correctly, a huge auric, a cattle animal of some type, a bovine animal. Are you familiar with that animal?
Yeah.
Okay. One was found with what could only be a perfectly placed bullet, like from a firearm, in the center of this animal's skull. Have you ever seen photographs of that, Klaus?
We tried to get that into our exhibition. It's in a museum in Russia, but we could not get it for the exhibition. I know it exactly, yeah.
Okay. That appears to have been an animal that was shot with a firearm, yes?
Yeah.
Well, now you got to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, thousands of years ago, the Egyptians may have had a type of electrical light. Ancient Greece had what could only be a manual computer that was discovered in a shipwreck, many other artifacts. Now, Klaus, in the field that I've inhabited for the last 30 plus years, a lot of people will automatically say, well, if that's true, it had to come from the extraterrestrials. But that's not actually giving human beings a heck of a lot of credit, is it?
Yeah, that is one of the problems, Tom. I'm coming up now. Bill knows me that many years I never ever talked about extraterrestrials or UFOs or such things, because I always said until I do not have the approval, I would not talk about that. And a few years ago, about 7 years ago, I received an email from Mexico, from a lady, and the email topic said top secret, and included were about 10 photographs. And first of all, I thought top secret from Mexico, maybe somebody would like to send me a virus on the computer. So I checked before opening the photos several times. I could not find any virus. And suddenly I opened the photos. And believe me, my first reaction was, this is a fake. This is a fraud. Because those photos were too good to be believable. You saw on the pictures UFOs, extraterrestrials with the NASA astronauts, some uniforms, some helmets, and all these things. And I really thought this is a fraud. And I'm a polite man. I wrote back to that lady, please tell me why you sent me those photos, because never ever I was talking about UFOs or extraterrestrials, because my meaning was always we are talking about unknown civilizations which disappears through big catastrophes. That was my research. And then I received those photos. So I asked that lady why she sent me those photos. And she said, she wrote me back, she checked many researchers, and finally she thought that I'm the most honest one. So she wants to inform me about a collection from a farmer who found in a tunnel on his land over 3,000 artifacts, from small ones up to nearly 2 feet tall ones. And
from what source?
Made out the majority was made out of stone, and the bigger ones made out of a kind of terracotta ceramic. And the farmer, she explained me, the farmer is too afraid to go public with those findings because he is afraid that later the government will take over the land and the artifacts. So I asked her, I would need some more photos. And in the following month, I received over 2,000 different photos of artifacts. And then I asked her to send me 3 or 4 examples that I can do some checking in Austria. And I received 4 pieces, and we checked it with a very, very good specialist geologist expert. And he could not really say, is it new made or old made, because we had no chance to do an age dating on the material. It was a kind of ceramic. But 3,000 pieces, that was my thinking was, who would make 3,000 really beautiful art pieces which he could never ever sell, because everybody automatically would say this is a fake. And even some of the pieces had inlays in gold and precious stones. So who would do such work? And then about 6 years ago, first time I thought I want to talk in a conference in Germany about some of those pieces, where you could see wormholes, sun eruptions, UFOs, and many things.
On these artifacts.
Artifacts, yeah, on the artifacts.
On the artifact, they were pictures or
no, and carvings.
Carvings on the artifacts.
Carvings on stone, and the one which are done by a kind of ceramic, they had to be, to do one piece, you have to make the form, then you have to make the molding, and then you get one piece, which is a lot of work to make one piece, which you cannot sell, because everybody automatically would say this is a fake. So if the farmer would be a faker and he could do such beautiful pieces, he would make pre-Columbian artifacts in a perfect way, and he could sell them, thousands of them. So that was the first thing I thought, it might be real. And then in the conference in Germany, there was also Nassim Haramein, a great physicist. And I asked Nassim, could you make some explanations to some of the artifacts, which he did in the conference. And I asked I asked the audience, please do not make photos or video, because I knew I would create a shitstorm incredible. So we showed some pieces. Nassim did the scientific explanations about wormholes and sun eruptions and many other things. And one guy, he did make a video, which we did not know. And after the conference, a few weeks later, he put that video on the internet. I tell you, Don, even the real UFO freaks called us liar, cheater, and many other words. A big shitstorm on us. And then I think every bad thing might have also some positive things. Month later, I received emails from other provinces in Mexico, from indigenous people and researchers, and they informed me and sent me hundreds of photos of other pieces, many of them very similar, many of them different, many of them with a completely unknown writing, with some of them are looking like some crop circles appearing, some symbols on crop circles were already on those stone artifacts and so on. Can you imagine? Several indigenous tribes sent me photos and they wrote me, we have also such artifacts already since long time in our family ownership.
Okay, now I know that the UFO extraterrestrial question is not something that you pursue. You may come across, crossovers in your research, perhaps, but I know it's not something that takes your time. But let me just ask you, Klaus, point blank.
Yeah.
Do you give any credence to the idea that perhaps extraterrestrials were here on planet Earth in the past and perhaps even today?
Now, I even have to say yes. Even I was completely against in the past, because Nassim got 2 stone masks with small mosaic semi-precious stones put on the mask. And they used a kind of organic material as a glue. And Nassim brought them to the university in Tucson, and they did age dating on the organic material. And they got age, one mask around 8,000 years and the other one about 12 to 14,000 years. And later on, a Russian researcher, Oleg, he went to 2 of these collections, and he could take also samples with him. And he did age dating in Russia, and they had also age datings over 10,000 years. So, who could make in Mexico artifacts showing sun eruptions, wormholes, UFOs, and extraterrestrial? That's the big question. And the other story I came across, which could be a sign of extraterrestrial, was 2003, when I was in Teotihuacan in Mexico, where the 3 pyramids are, the Sun Pyramid, the Moon Pyramid, and the Quetzalcoatl Pyramid. And I got friend with the archaeological director of the archaeological area in Teotihuacan. And he showed me some very special artifacts in the deposit room, not shown in the museum. One was a stela, a stone stela,
yes,
which he called Stela Atomica, because in that stela you have the perfect encarving of the symbol of atom. And the second information he gave me... The
god atom?
Atom, the atom, yeah.
The god?
No, the symbol, the symbol.
Okay.
If you talk about atom, you have a symbol, right?
All right.
And that symbol encarved in a stone stela, which they found on excavation in the area of Teotihuacan. And the second information, he told me that a few months ago, he opened a tunnel under the Sun Pyramid going direction to the Moon Pyramid. And in the tunnel, he found a perfect made stone box. And when he opened the stone box, he was shocked because it was filled with liquid mercury. And he gave this information to the INA, to the Ministry of Culture. They closed the tunnel. Even he was not allowed to go in anymore. And 2 universities from United States came with special technology, and they could do the research inside the tunnel. So when I was talking about that 2004, 2005 in some conferences, some of the people were laughing about me. Liquid mercury in Mexico, stupid, no? And 3 years ago, Neil Steady, the American archaeologist, a good friend of mine, he found a tunnel entrance outside the Quetzalcoatl Pyramid, and Mexican archaeologists opened that tunnel going straight down, and then the tunnel direction under the Quetzalcoatl Pyramid, and they announced about 2 years ago that they found inside the tunnel liquid mercury.
What do you think that was for, Klaus?
I have no idea, but now think about, Don. You have thousands and thousands of artifacts made out of ceramic, made out of jade carving, made out of stone carvings, showing different extraterrestrials, showing UFOs, showing star constellations and sun eruptions and wormholes. And then you find liquid mercury. What might you think?
Well, the ancient Vedic traditions talk about mercury being used in their vimanas, their flying machines.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to tell you later. Because you find in the Mahabharata, in the Vedas, you find explanations of the so-called vimanas, and you can read in the translations that they used mercury for the power, to create the power. And then you find in Mexico artifacts showing UFOs, and you find liquid mercury. And you have the explanation about weapons, which are the explanations of some of the weapons. You think you read about Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Bright lights, the birds falling down from the trees, dead, all the food is poisoned and everything.
Yes.
And then you find in Mohenjo-Daro, they found skeletons with very high radioactivity.
Well, there's still radioactivity today that is sickening people in northern India. I forget the name of the area. The British, back during their colonial days, was putting a track through there for their trains, and people were getting sick and what have you, and a high level of radioactivity even today was discovered. So
that makes me thinking different. And you cannot say just no. If you find something which makes your thinking a little bit changing, you should go that way and think different. But of course, now people are writing, he wants to be the second Eric von Däniken. No. I just look for facts, and I would like to know the age dating, and I would like to find out what is behind those artifacts. And after getting close friend with that lady who sent me those many, many thousands photos, I asked her to give me the location of the farmer's land. And you won't believe it, we found additional 2 tunnels which are not yet open, and we know that they are also filled with artifacts. And this is one of my next plans, and I should have gone already this year, but I cannot through the stop of my work here and through the lockdown at the moment. But next year I want to go there, and I would like to open one of those tunnels, or maybe even both, and looking and filming, making a documentation when we bring out those artifacts that nobody can later say that those are also fake.
Now, do you, at this point, Klaus, is your speculation, and I realize pure speculation, you don't know, I don't know, but do you suspect that perhaps these artifacts were placed in there by extraterrestrials?
No idea. But what we also get on one of the tunnels is bones. And bones means that we might see what kind of people did bury those artifacts.
So
right?
this probably happened before the flood, I would think. Would you go that way?
I would think so too.
Before the flood. Okay, now this is something that it just causes the young boy in me to come to the forefront, thinking about that time. Now, and I'm talking about when half of North America was covered by upwards of 2 miles of ice from the glaciers, that vast herds of all types of animals roamed the plains. There were humans here. Today, we refer to them as the Clovis peoples.
Yeah.
These humans were accomplished hunters. They subsisted on their hunting, probably gathering also cereal grains and what have you. But yet, something happened that, in an eye blink, so to speak, caused everything to happen topsy-turvy. Now, in Greenland, under the ice up in Greenland, a meteor or asteroid crater was discovered that is perhaps close to 100 miles in diameter. It is believed that, Graham Hancock, for example, believes it was a comet that came down, broke up into numerous fragments. Several fragments hit North America. A big one hit Greenland, and suddenly it all changed. There was Earth dispersal or displacement. Now, Klaus, have you ever taken a close look at that and formed your own opinion on what may have happened?
There are many possibilities. There is also the story about the Gulf of Mexico with a very big crater, and it's very hard to say.
But whatever it was, it changed the face of the planet in an eye blink, didn't it?
Yep.
Now, if in fact there were an advanced civilization, a worldwide civilization, and many myths point that way, today we collectively refer to that worldwide civilization, sailors, mariners, as Atlantis, but that just causes me to go into spasms of delight thinking about that. Have you basically gone that way? Now, it may not have been called Atlantis. It may have been something entirely different, but a worldwide culture that spanned the globe. Do you put credence in that?
Yes, I do. Because you have so many similarities on artifacts all over the world. And the very interesting thing is, for me, the most interesting artifacts found are made out of stone. Why? Because any other material after thousands of years would disappear. Stone and gold would be the only one which would not change the surface. And that's why there are old gold artifacts found with many interested engravings and carvings, and also most of them stone. Because you remember the floppy disks from the first computers. You remember?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you cannot read anymore any floppy disk because there is no more old computer. Even the small cassettes you cannot use anymore. And all those material, high-tech, everything would disappear. Even cities sometimes would disappear, or big buildings under jungle, like the Bosnian pyramids or the Sun Pyramid in Teotihuacan. When they found the pyramid, it was like a mountain, like the Sun Pyramid in Bosnia, covered by soil, by tree, by grass, by plants. But under that, you have a completely structure, a building. But from outside, you cannot see. Only the form might give you the idea. That's how Dr. Samos Manakic found the pyramids in Bosnia. And still, the big Egyptologists, the big archaeologists are against him, because that would not be possible, because age dating of organic material goes to 32,000 years. So all the story about the oldest, biggest pyramid is in Egypt, and everything would be different. And if we talk about the Egyptian pyramids, I personally don't believe that the Cheops pyramid is only 4,000 years old. I don't.
No, I don't either. You know, I knew John Anthony West.
Oh, he was a great researcher.
Yes, before he passed.
Yeah.
And when he and Robert Schoch were examining the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were convinced not only had it undergone weathering by massive amounts of water, but that it may have been 7, 8, even 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
Now that is a heck of a thing. So that leads me, Klaus, to my next question. And before I go there, let me just say this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dark Matters Radio. Dark Matters Radio is brought to you exclusively by KGRA Radio, your contact point to the paranormal. My very special guest, and I'm very privileged to have him this evening, Mr. Klaus Dona, who has made a name for himself by fearlessly going into places where others are, dare I say it, afraid to walk, and reporting publicly his discoveries. And believe me, that gives heartache to a lot of folks. Klaus, I gotta ask you now. Earlier in the show, we talked about Mesopotamia. We talked about the ancient land of Sumer. We talked about the ancient Egyptians. Now, I'm going to tell you up front that I believe, by the knowledge that I have, that they were simply remnants from a much older civilization that, for whatever reason, disappeared. And, I mean, when you look at Sumer, here we had a civilization literally sprout up, metaphorically speaking, overnight with advanced mathematics, astronomy, how to govern, agriculture, animal husbandry. I mean, nobody has ever been able to explain that, have they?
Yeah.
So would it not make sense that they, in fact, were remnants? The same with the Egyptians, that they were survivors or the ancestors surviving that had ancestors that were in this previous culture. Would you give credence to that?
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking too.
Okay, well, you are currently not in Europe or North America. You are currently in Asia. What would you feel comfortable about, if anything, talking about what you're doing now?
Oh, interesting. I'm searching for ancient artifacts, for giants, and several things here in the Philippines.
You are searching for more giants. Now, okay, how extensive in your research and what you've uncovered, how extensive were these beings or entities, and how do you explain them? I mean, it seems a fait accompli that these beings were real. Where did they come from? Do you have any idea?
No. Many artifacts, explanations pointing out, especially now in these days, through the Strongs in Australia and the Aborigines in Australia, pointing out the Pleiades. And the Pleiades are coming up on several artifacts from different continents.
Yeah, but that is, in cosmological terms, that's an extremely young star group. Are you suggesting that there may have been visitation from that area of the sky?
Could be.
Even as young as that star group is, the sisters, they're also referred to as the sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, all right. That is something I had not considered. Now, in Native American tradition, especially the indigenous native peoples that were up around Michigan, the Great Lakes, what have you, had stories about encountering red-haired giants that, and not only there, but other places, that were considered violent enemies of the indigenous peoples.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're familiar with that, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Any thoughts or ideas on that?
Not really. I mean, the most difficult in our days is to get really contact with the right people who are really willing to show you original skeletons. You might get some bones, you might do some age dating or even DNA analysis. That would be very helpful. Like I told you at the beginning that from Caucasus in Russia, over 3.5-4 meter giants buried in sarcophagus. That's another story which could be again a link to Egypt, because also from China I got many pictures of artifacts found there, and there is one bronze statue which looks exactly like the Isis from Egypt. But this artifact was found in China long time ago. It's already hundreds of years in the ownership of the same family. And other pieces which are really looking a little bit like Egyptian. And the one story, you have informations in Egypt that some of the pharaohs are buried to the east and some of them to the west. And even informations in Greece, historians are talking that the Egyptians were telling a story that the sun was long time ago rising in the west and going down in the east. That means, what does that mean? That the earth was changing, maybe through a big catastrophe, maybe through whatever, losing the magnetic power or whatsoever. What would you think about that?
Well, it would have been perhaps the result of a tremendous impact that would cause the rotation of the Earth to change its course. But it would seem to me that if something like that in fact happened, my heaven, how would anyone survive that?
Maybe underground. And that's why you find so many tunnels and underground rooms all over the world, and they are quite deep.
Like in Turkey?
In Turkey, but also here on the Philippines. Where we are working now, we are already 65 meter underground.
My heaven.
That's over 220 feet.
And it shows at one point there may have been human habitation there?
It's definitely human-made.
Well, 200 feet down, over 200 feet, that is very deep. Just the mere fact that they exist would seem to me to cause many questions to be raised.
65 meter is quite a safe place underground.
Yeah.
If a really heavy catastrophe happens. And I got some pictures from a very strange area in Argentine, which looks like a very strange airport with several landing pistes. And we did also a check over that area, and we found big room system underground, and approximately also 220 feet. And then the information from Caucasus in Russia, they sent me some Google Earth pictures where you can see many places looking like bomb craters, like from the Second World War, but bigger. And there was definitely never German bombing in this area. The Germans went down to the Mount Elbrus, to the Caucasus, because of the oil fields. And also the Ahnenerbe, a special organization from the Third Reich, from the Nazi, they sent a delegation of researchers in this area. And we checked with our system this area, and wherever you have some, like a bomb crater, you have underground, you have a room, and that looks also like an ancient war with some weapons which were explained in the Mahabharata and in the Vedas. Very strange.
Must have been one hell of a war.
Oh, yeah. And about 3 years ago, they found one leather suitcase, a small leather suitcase. On that leather suitcase was written Ahnenerbe, and inside there were two very, very, very strange skulls. Very strange skulls. You can find some pictures on the internet.
On strange how, Klaus?
Not human, definitely not. Like animal or extraterrestrial, I would say so.
Well, the one area that we have not broached this evening, and apparently, I guess this could make an entire show in itself, is the Antarctic. We have not discussed that. Now, there are many, many stories emanating from the Antarctic going back to before and during and after the Second World War.
Yeah.
Germans purportedly had gone down there. Apparently, they at one point had U-boats, their submarines going down there, perhaps taking supplies or whatever.
Not perhaps, they did it.
I'm sorry?
Not perhaps, they did it.
Yes. Well, I'm trying. I wasn't there, so.
Yeah, but we have approval that they were there.
But then suddenly everything down in the Antarctic went dark, Klaus. Nobody.
And Admiral Byrd, he was there with several warships.
Yeah, and recently, very recently, in the last several years, some very high-level people, not only from the United States, but from Great Britain, from other places, traveled down there. The suggestion was that an ancient underground base, city, God only knows what, was discovered down there. Do you have any information on that?
We did scanning over one part of the area where I had the information where the Germans were. I received some maps from the time when they went there, and we did a scan over the ice area, and we have huge underground system there.
Now, the question is, from whom and how old is that system?
I think the system itself is much, much older.
Well, you know, then you come across artifacts like the Piri-Reis map.
Yeah.
Which show Antarctica without the ice and the snow.
Yeah. And they found out that it is exactly the landmass which really exists under the ice. They found it out, I think, in the 1956.
National Geographic Survey, yes.
Yeah.
Now, that causes me to think that perhaps 10 or 12,000 years ago, that Antarctica, what today is Antarctica, was not the ice-covered ice cube that it is, but that there was perhaps human habitation down there, that it was part of this worldwide culture. Perhaps it's one of the few remnants of what we think of as Atlantis. Do you think that could be possible?
I don't think. Yeah, Atlantis. The question is, Atlantic, was it one island? Was Atlantic a global civilization with different areas? Which I think it was, because we have one area in Morocco which looks like exactly the explanation of Plato of Atlantis. We have one area which is also similar in Spain.
Yes.
In the area of Cadiz. We have a third one in Bolivia, and we have a fourth one in Indonesia.
What about Africa? What about that area known as the Eye?
That's definitely an area which is interesting, because our scan gave us the information that there are building structures, there are bones, and there are precious metal. And there is an Austrian-German couple living in South Africa. They went there and they did a research, and they found at the local tribes artifacts made out of stone, which are really incredible, and the same very, very great similarity with artifacts they found in and around the stone circles in South Africa, which Michael Tellinger is doing a great research there. And even in Bolivia, we found artifacts which are looking exactly the same like in Morocco. So that means, that's why I went more into the artifacts, because I think from buildings you cannot learn that much about the civilization as you can do on artifacts. They give you much more information.
So, to paraphrase all of this together, I think back to a statement that Graham Hancock made back in the 90s, that we are a civilization suffering amnesia. In other words, we basically have forgotten everything that basically came before us.
Yeah, where should we have kept it in mind? I mean, I think there was not only one time a global catastrophe. I think from time to time, and that's what the Mayas are also saying, that several times a great catastrophe happened, and after that the whole life starts again from zero, because you only have some stories like you find in Tibet, stories about pictures. They could talk. What is a flat screen TV doing? It's a picture like which is able to talk. Only stories are forever legends. That's why I'm also concentrated on legends, because I think every legend has a lot of percentage of reality. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I before we started tonight's show, you and I had a very, very brief chat before the show.
Yeah.
And I asked you if you were familiar with a book titled The Adam and Eve Story that was published in 1965, 1966. The Central Intelligence Agency grabbed that book off the shelves, classified the book. It was 260 or 70 pages in length. Around 2012 or 13, somebody filed a request to basically have that declassified, and the Central Intelligence Agency declassified about 70 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, roughly 200 pages are still classified in their archives. Now, what was this book about? The Adam and Eve Story. It was about Earth catastrophism, and you're right, it didn't just happen once, but it may have happened as many as 3 or 4, even 5 times in our prehistory. Human beings have been around a heck of a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Whether, people like to admit it or not. And we may have suffered being reset to zero more than once, Klaus.
That's what I think so. And then everything starts from zero again, because the survivor, they have to fight for food, for their children, for themselves. No more technology, nothing. What they knew, they will try to give from generation to generation, but it will get less believable because no more existing.
That's a depressing thought, is it not? Well, in many ways, like what has happened in the last several months with the coronavirus, the COVID-19. I mean, in some ways, we have been reset way back, haven't we?
Yeah, and what do you, frankly speaking, think about the danger of that virus? I personally don't think that it is so dangerous as they are saying. And they might use that virus for the explanation why a big economical problem is coming, which we knew already several years, that it's not the question if it comes, it's the question when is it coming. And I think we are facing soon a worldwide economical problem, which is much more dangerous than that virus.
And what happened in the last time we had a worldwide economic problem? In the late 1920s, the 1930s, we went right to a practically damn near a world-ending war, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very, very scary thought. Well,
and
Klaus,
who knows, Don? Who knows if maybe one or even more times the disappearance of most of the humanity, of the most of the animals, could have been also man-made. With the weapons we have now already on this earth, we could easily eliminate us all in one big war.
Yeah, well, I've been to war, Klaus. I was in war in Southeast Asia and Vietnam. Yeah. Now, of course, it was not, at no point did we ever think then that it would be a world-ending thing. But if it could have gone another way, I suppose we could have gone into a serious situation. But, it's like, just today, I heard a news report that the President of the United States just issued orders to the United States Navy sailing off the shores of Iran that if any of our naval vessels again are harassed by Iranian gunboats, to sink them. Now, that could be a pretty sticky wicket, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kind of a scary thing. Well, Klaus, believe it or not, we are almost out of time. My God, this has been great. I would love to have you come back and visit with us again. Do you see that possibly happening in the future?
I'll be back, Don.
Well, this has been spectacular. I'm just looking at something here. Bill sent me. Oh yeah. Now I just watched, ladies and gentlemen, a history documentary where Klaus, my guest tonight, Klaus Dona, was figured very prominently in. Forbidden History is the name of the show. The mystery of General Yamashita's treasure is in this episode. It's something that if you come across it, Forbidden History, on General Yamashita, Klaus is in there, and we didn't get a chance to go into that. But Klaus, I got to tell you, I was fascinated by that. Do you have any final words you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, it's not the case of the treasure. That's not the most important, what I'm looking here. Of course, if we find treasure, we can help a lot of people here, especially after that virus problem. People are very poor here. I would like to help them. But my major target are the many, many old artifacts from China, from Vietnam, from Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, and even from Philippines, which were brought in the Second World War by the Japanese here to the Philippines and buried them underground. And I would like to bring them up again to light. That's the major target.
That is outstanding, Klaus. And that is it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Klaus Dona. Klaus, this has been a privilege and an honor. Thank you so much.
It was an honor talking to you, Don.
Well, safe journeys. And if you get back to the United States, boy, I'd love a chance to meet you in person. If you get out here, I'm in California. So
okay.
with that being said, that's it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back this next week. In the meantime, keep your eyes pointed up, your ear to the ground, just to get an idea of what's happening around you, and we'll see you then. Good night.